Where's my?
Well, get professional because we're on, Peggy. So you're up in the snow in the mountains?
It's snowing like dogs and cats or cats and dogs, however it does that.
We're getting ready for on Monday is the total eclipse.
Oh yeah.
For the which is going to be funny because I think the whole world is going to go in our area is going to go crazy. The highway, it's going to be a complete mess. So, all the jokes about tonight, I'm so excited, but what the puck, we're going to have a puck and great time. See, these are all good hockey stuff, but people ask me, why do
Did you know that I played hockey?
Excuse me?
Do you know that I played hockey on a girls' team in Oakland, California?
Did you really? I was going to ask you if you ice skated before.
Oh, hell, my friend and I, Gretchen, she's my best friend. I think you met Gretchen in Sacramento. And we met each other at the Concord Sun Valley Mall ice skating rink because we were both taking figure skating lessons in our early 20s.
Yeah.
And we both sucked at it. We couldn't do shit, but we could actually skate really good, fast forward, and skate backwards really good. So
people into the wall.
We met these guys, and they started having us go over on Sundays to the Berkeley Arena. And so we ended up playing. We started out playing broom ball, but then we ended up playing on a girls' hockey team for about a year. And then I got really tired of being hit in the head with a stick.
Yeah.
The girls were a little aggressive. So that was the end of I still have a hockey stick. And we went to every Oakland Seals game for like 2 years. This is really good stuff. Gretchen and I played Santa Claus and Mrs. Santa Claus for the Oakland Seals hockey team Christmas party.
That was before you became alcohol free, so I could just see you staggering with sleigh bells all over. So people ask me why I do this show and what I get out of it, and the quick answer is merchandise. So I've got my Kalamazoo wings free gear I get for doing the show from our guests. So this is the reason, just so you know why I do this. It has nothing to do with my sobriety or learning, how to live an alcohol-free life. It's merchandise.
Well, that's extra flattering on you. Kind of makes me want to sing like a Davy Crockett song.
Thank you. I feel like just busting up some Schifferow, some wood with an axe in this thing.
Are you going to go out tonight on the ice and dig a hole and go fishing?
Yeah, I could do that for sure. In Indiana, we have lots of ice fishing here in Indiana. So our guest is she's into violence on the ice. Brawls break out at her things, and supposedly, from what I've heard, Toni encourages and puts out like cash bonus for her players to brawl. So with that, I'm going to let you introduce our guest, but I am thrilled to have Toni Will join us. Toni, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm just backstage here laughing at you two. I love it.
Well, Peggy,
God, I just can't believe that hockey was such a part of my young adulthood. It was my life. And my roommate Gretchen actually dated a player for a really long time. And we used to even fly down. I had a boyfriend who had an airplane, and she had a hockey boyfriend. So we used to take a 14-seater down and go to the games in LA. I think the Kings at the time. She was dating a King. Wow. And we just had so much fun. In fact, last fun fact of the night, we were sitting up there just minding our own business, and a puck landed in my beer.
Wow. The odds of that, you need to play the lotto.
All of us. We just got completely, it was fun.
The first time I met Toni, and I want you to read the little bio because she's got quite an intro, but the first thing, do you remember the first thing I said to you? I walked up to you and I said, I can recite the movie Slapshot line for line, which is true. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and she was about as impressed as the look I get from her. I got then is the same look I get from you every Thursday, Peggy. So
I don't remember that, Jeff. I just remember how much taller you are than me.
Well, that's not hard to do.
Yeah.
Jeff is my own personal eclipse of the sun.
Same. I think you used me as like to rest your arm on at one point.
I know I got to know the top of your head very well because every time I looked at you, it's down here. It's so low. So Peggy, tell us about Toni, and I'm so glad you're here, Toni. Thank you so much. You impressed the hell out of me, and I want to hear your story.
Yeah, Toni has my dream job. Toni Will has 25 years work experience in leadership, starting in the banking and now serving as, get this, people out there, the general manager and governor for the Kalamazoo Wings, a men's AA professional hockey team in Kalamazoo, Michigan for the past 9 years and counting. Toni is the first female GM to serve on the board of the governors in the ECHL. What does that stand? I know hockey league, but
It used to be it used to be the East Coast Hockey League back when the league originated in '88, but now we're across the whole US and into Canada. So
awesome. So Toni launched her lifestyle coaching business, Mindfulness Elevated. I absolutely love that name. In 2021, helping others find freedom from substances, reaching fitness and nutrition goals, as well as professional development coaching. She is passionate about helping emerging leaders break through their own glass ceiling. And so take it away, Toni.
Oh, I love this. The sound effects are amazing.
It's a live studio audience behind us. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just thrilled to be here. You guys are friends. I love it. Every time I see you in whatever city Susie and Peggy take us to for Sober in the City, it's so much fun. And it's just an honor to be on the show. So thank you for having me. So yeah, I mean, my bio kind of summed it up. I didn't start in hockey. I certainly didn't think at 36 years old, I'd be running a hockey team. That was not what I thought I'd be doing. And I've changed careers 3 times in my 25 years. And so it takes a certain personality traits that I'll talk about that I applied to choosing to remove alcohol from my life. And they run parallel at times, but it was kind of a rocky road to get there, as you all can probably relate. So yeah, I started in banking when I was still finishing up college. I graduated from Western Michigan University here. So I'm born and raised in Kalamazoo. I thought I would leave and do something awesome. But I didn't. I stayed, and I'm doing stuff that's awesome. So I graduated from Western with my degree in business management, and I started I worked for a bank locally here in a management role, because naturally when you graduate with a degree in management and you're 22 or 23 years old, you should be managing. That's what I thought. Young Toni was like, oh, you have a management degree? You should naturally be managing people. I always had a fire in my belly. Always. I've always been super motivated. I've always been someone that is a goal setter and achieving goals. And I often say I'd like to meet 22-year-old Toni again. I just get a kick out of her, I bet. And so I also was dating my first husband at the time, and before we got married. And shortly thereafter, we got married and we started a family. And I decided I wanted to stay home. And everyone around me thought I was like, are you okay? Because that just doesn't seem like me. But Landon, that was my son, or is my son. He's 20 years old now. And I stayed home for a year. And I loved it. I enjoyed spending that time with him until he was mobile and had a personality. And then I was like, this is hard. And so I went back to work. So I went back to work, and I had a beautiful life. I was antsy. I was restless. I wasn't where I wanted to be. I had my daughter, Chloe, who's now 17. And I wasn't happy in the marriage. And so here comes change number one. At 29 years old, I just decided that it wasn't for me anymore. And that was a really hard decision. I grew up in a Catholic family. My first husband grew up in a very Catholic family. His oldest brother is a Catholic priest. He married us. He baptized our kids. It was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal to walk away from that marriage. And there wasn't It wasn't like there was some big reason. I just wasn't happy. And that story is important because I know this now, but I didn't know it then. That was my line of demarcation. That is when I started to turn to alcohol to cope. Because I wasn't a drinker, really. In college, I've always kind of been working. I love working.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't like, it wasn't Animal House, Jeff. We were talking off air, but that wasn't my life. I was really career driven. And so from 29 to 42, I really was experimenting with what that lifestyle looked like. And I had joint custody of my children for the majority of that. And so 1 week on, 1 week off, it set me up to be able to what I would call work hard, play hard. And I got really involved in triathlon at the time. And I was doing a lot of endurance sports, like running half marathons, full marathons. I started doing every distance triathlon. I worked my way all the way up to doing 2 full Ironmans in my 30s and working. And I worked in banking, and then I made a transition in my 30s. I decided to, I got an interesting offer to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Kalamazoo. And they were going through a big transition from being an external organization and moving inside our economic development area. And someone reached out to me and said, would you be interested in running the chamber? And I'm like, I don't even know what chambers do. But so I was like, well, let me check this out. So I did a little bit of research. I'm a person that goes by my gut instinct. I'm not super analytical. And so I'm like, you know what? Why not? And I left 13 years in banking, and I went into the nonprofit world, and I had this beautiful gift to work with small business owners in Kalamazoo on helping them grow their businesses. And it was externally, I loved it. Ribbon cuttings and networking events and advocacy and all these things. Internally, the culture did not match my core values, and I was not happy. So what happens when Tony's not happy.
Were you drinking through all this? Because that's a lot of accomplishments. I mean, the triathlons and all of that.
Yes. So the majority of it I had in my mid 30s, I had right after I left the chamber, and I was in between gigs because I left with, here I go again, like mid 30s, Tony. I wasn't happy at the Chamber of Commerce. And so I went to the CEO and I was just like, I'm not happy. And so one of these key themes is high courage. And I don't sit there and say to myself, oh, here's a high courage day. I'm just going and being Toni and saying, I'm going to lead up. I'm not happy. What can we do about this? And it ended up not ending well. And that's okay. But I decided just to leave. I'm in my mid 30s. I've got 3 kids. I've got a mortgage and a husband and all these things. And by that point, I should mention I was on husband number 2. 3rd time's the charm for me. I'll get to that happy ending in a minute. But I was drinking through all that. And it really kind of started to escalate even more when I was transitioning in that time and like coping with the job change, the identity shift. Like, I love working. What did I just do? What's next? The uncertainty. And so I was definitely drinking more but I didn't really know, I didn't know, I was like, not in denial. I was just thinking it was normal to drink from a box of wine instead of a bottle of wine. Like, I was just kind of naive to it all.
Did you get a sense of, I'm stronger because I can do both? Because I can drink and succeed in all these things. So
yeah, it was like a reward. Like, this was a big thing for me. Yeah. So it's like, and it seemed like everyone did that. It was like, oh, I'm social, I network, I'm running the chamber, so I drink, and that's normal because everyone around me is doing it. And it definitely was a reward when I was training for those triathlons. I mean, I was working for that Bud Light Lime.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, like that. There's pictures of me, if you go deep enough into my Facebook, of me holding up a Bud Light Lime after a triathlon or after a marathon or something like that. That's what I was working for.
That's exactly what, my husband's a marathoner, and so is was a marathoner, and so is his sister's an ultra runner. And exactly, I remember, like every, just when you cross the finish line, they hand you a bud with a lime, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was
So
just so normal to me.
what made, I guess, is it advertising? It's a society that for all of that work that you are conditioned to believe the reward is a beer
Yeah.
or a buzz.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the culture, right? And in each, each community, now I'm not talking about Kalamazoo, but like the triathlon community that, and I was the president of the triathlon club
Of
at the
course you
time.
were.
Of course I was. Does that surprise either one of you? But it was that work hard, play hard. I mean, I look back on that time in my life and it was like our triathlon meetings, like our monthly membership meetings, were in breweries, right?
Oh,
Or they're
yeah.
at sports bars. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when I step back and actually think about that, or when I really started to do this work on questioning my relationship with alcohol, I'm like, wow. I mean, I built my whole life around it. And it doesn't make sense if I'm going out and doing this Ironman for 13 hours and 56 minutes, not that I'm counting. Why would I undo all that work and a year of training with drinking?
I don't know if it was a justification, but my workouts, so many things I did it allowed me to earn the right to drink.
Yeah.
Because now I'm okay. It's like, yeah, but I did this, this, and this. I deserve this, or I've earned the right to do it. So I achieved in things, not for the benefit, the achievement of that. I did it so that I could earn the right to guilt-free, in my mind, guilt-free drink.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and I had my guilt-free drinking, usually I was always like around my birthday, because that was the one day where I'm like, oh, no one can tell me no, because this is the day I was born.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to drink. We had literally drank. We were playing broomball at the Sun Valley Mall, and when the Zamboni would shave the ice, we'd go next door and have Bloody Marys, and then get back on the ice.
Oh yeah. I mean, drinking in the hockey culture. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surrounded by it every day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that transition from the chamber. So this is the interesting story about how I ended up in hockey, because I get asked this question quite a bit. Like, how did you end up being the general manager of a men's AA professional hockey team? So, and real quick, just so everyone understands the hierarchy. So we're a developmental league. And what that means, we develop players on the ice to go up to the NHL or the American Hockey League. So we're a feeder team for the American Hockey League and then for the National Hockey League, the NHL. So our affiliations with Abbotsford Canucks and the Vancouver Canucks. And so our players move up and down that system. We also are developmental in the front office. And by that, I mean, I have employees now in the NFL, the MLB, the AHL, the NHL. I mean, you name a league, I've got in the MLS, I've got employees or former employees that have gone on the front office side and the
That's
business
so
side.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really probably at least 25 or 30. So it's really neat to see them achieve their goals as well. So that's how, so it's the NHL, the AHL, and the ECHL. And so how I ended up there is so we're a privately owned hockey franchise within a hospitality group here in Kalamazoo. In that hospitality group, there's restaurants, there's retail, there's a hotel, and then the hockey team. And some more sheets of ice for adult league hockey and youth hockey and figure skating and stuff like that. So I actually applied. The job I applied for was for a fashion boutique inside the hotel because I wanted less responsibility. I'd been in leadership my whole career. I've been in like managing people, and I wanted less responsibility. And so I applied for the job, and HR called me and they said, Toni, you're overqualified. And I said, I know. And they said, you're going to be bored. And I said, that's okay. I want to be bored. I don't want. So then they called me. They said, okay, we don't know what to do with you. And I'm like, you're not the first one to say that. So they called me back and they said, all right, we've got something for you that maybe you would consider. And I said, okay, lay it on me. And they said, the Kalamazoo Wings. And I said, the hockey team? I grew up here, so I've gone to a few games. And growing up, I go, they're still around? And they said, yeah, that's what we need change. So we'd like someone that knows how to run a business, that knows how to build teams, and by not hockey teams, but a business staff, sales people, marketing, and that knows how to sell, and that knows this community and I love Kalamazoo. And I was like, well, I guess I do. I go, and then my next statement was this: I don't know shit about hockey. And because I'm just too honest, right? And they were like, that's okay. You don't need to know about hockey. It's the other stuff that we're looking for. And so I said yes to the best job I never knew I wanted. And I took a 35% pay cut. But I've always lived by this philosophy that if I love what I do, the money will follow.
Yeah.
And it's never failed me. And I absolutely love love what I do. And I can't believe I'm moving in on 10 years with the Kalamazoo Wings. And I've been doing a lot of work in the women in sports space as of recently, in combination with doing this work and talking very openly about doing it alcohol free.
You know, I'm big, very, very strong on the belief that my beliefs control my actions. Mm-hmm. And I had to, I believed alcohol served me well. So therefore it's hard to want to give something up when you deep down believe it benefits you. You had a lot of success. I'm sure there was a lot of socializing, a lot of presence where alcohol. Did you attribute your success to alcohol? Did you give alcohol credit for helping you to be successful?
Yes, hands down.
That's a hard one to then, how are you going to give something up or be successful when the thing that got you there, or a major contributor for getting you there?
Yes, I hands down thought that, and especially in building relationships, because as Peggy read in my bio, I'm on the board of governors. And so what that means is each league is governed. It's like a board of directors, but we're called governors in sports. And so there's 60 governors on this board. And because each team has 2 governors, there's a governor and an alternate governor. So if I get hit by a bus, then my alternate governor steps in for me in my responsibilities. And my belief was so strong that in order to be respected on the board, and by the way, I was the first female governor because some of the women were alternate governors, but there's less than 5 women in that room out of 60. And so I believed very deep down that the only way, one of the only ways I was going to earn respect was to belly up to the bar with the guys.
So how did you, when you became alcohol free, and I don't know how long ago that was, but how did you overcome those moments? Because my fear would be that I'm going to get looked at differently. Mm-hmm. Now maybe I'm labeled as a problem drinker. Mm-hmm. You know, if people know this, there's a lot of things a lot more challenges than just quitting alcohol that you overcame when you chose to become alcohol free. How was that received, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. So I'll step back to where it started. I stopped drinking in October of 2020. We were dark that season because of the pandemic. Mm. So I was able, and I travel a lot for work, but because everything was shut down, I was able to, and it's not like I planned to stop drinking. When I decided I was going to take a 30-day break, like I put Toni in a timeout. I didn't have a program or anything like that. I was like, Toni, you're going into timeout, 30-day break. I remember I was at a girls' weekend up north in northern Michigan, and I texted him that Monday morning, Josh, who's now my third and final husband. And I said, I'm going to take a 30-day break from alcohol. And he was like, oh, is this one of those Toni promises that you break? And he said it with love. It wasn't with judgment. And I said, no, I really mean it. I just really need to evaluate this, because to your point, Jeff, I didn't like my relationship with alcohol. So whether I had one drink a week or I was drinking 20 drinks a day, it was a problem for me.
What turned sour in it?
I felt like, oh gosh, so much. I mean, the cliche saying, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I just always felt like I could outdrink most of the people. And I didn't, and it was embarrassing to me. Shame. And just when you wake up in the morning and it's like, how much did I drink? Did I say anything? Did my kids see me? Did I lose my cell phone? Is someone mad at me? Like, did I drunk dial anyone? Like that whole narrative. I was just over it. I was so over it. And physically it was just getting harder because I was in my early 40s. And I tended to skirt the edges of drinking to blackout at times. Like when I really was on I didn't that weekend, but I'd known to do that before and it was scary. I didn't like it.
Was any external messages for you to stop, or was it all internal?
It was all internal. It was all, I mean, like external in the sense that I think
the kids, the spouse,
yes,
co-workers.
Yeah. So my kids, they didn't like, they didn't really say much, but you could tell like it bugged them. My husband would talk to me about it, but I was very open with him too, like questioning it, right? Like when you start, red flag number one for me, and this was years ago, and I use this as an indicator just for anything in my life now, but when I go to Google and start to ask Google questions,
exactly,
then I know something's up,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, am I an alcoholic?
Well, because you're looking at two things, right? You're looking at, I'm not that bad. Originally you look for a reason to justify your current behavior. Mm-hmm. But then you look at it so many times and really you start to get honest with yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, when I look back, it's like, and I have like opinion, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with the term alcoholic, but I don't consider myself one.
No, I actually do, but that's another story. Well, and I think labels like Jeff was talking about behavior, your beliefs drive your behavior. I think words drive our behavior too. And and again, if somebody wants to call themselves an alcoholic, I have no problem with that.
Sure.
I just feel like labels tend to limit who we are as people.
Oh, yeah. And that would have limited me. I felt that way when I started to question it. So that's what kept me from really evaluating this and saying, okay, but in October 2020, I had the time because we weren't playing. And so I had 10 months where I was working from home, not traveling, where I could really dive into this work. That's because awesome. It's not a light switch. At least for me, it's not. It's not a light switch where I'm like, oh, the room's dark, let me solve the problem, and I turn the light switch on.
And for a lot of people, Toni, it was a reason to drink. So, you were there. I think there's three camps, right? One was they drank more because they were home and they could actually drink while they were working on Zoom. I mean, the stories are crazy. Or I think maybe the other camp is sort of what we got alcohol free for different reasons. However, I had 8 months, I think, underneath my belt when COVID hit, and it was such a blessing for me because there was no reason to socialize, and so I didn't have to worry about all the social pressures of drinking. I could really work on myself, so I can really relate to what you're saying.
And that's
what did you find in those 30 days?
I found the first 15 to be really hard. I was really hard on myself. It was all emotional. I remember sitting at the island at the house talking to Josh about it, my husband, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, why am I so successful in all these areas of my life except this one thing?
Exactly.
Why can't I get my arms wrapped around it? Because my governing belief, to your point, Jeff, was I wanted to have it all. And my definition of having it all was starting my day with caffeine and ending my day with wine and having, the career and the family and everything in between. And why can't I figure this out? What's wrong with you, Toni?
My fantasy was to quit, which kind of was at the end, I did this several times where I didn't want anybody to tell me I had to quit. So my dream was to quit and then drink again and then quit, so that I made the decision, not my family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because honestly, 6 months before I put my wine glass down for good, I got teacher of the year.
Yeah.
And so all I could think about was, God, can I get rid of this shitty wine I'm drinking at this reception and go home and drink my own bottles? So that's kind of when I knew I was in trouble, because I had everything. I had the dream job like you, and I had everything. And I'm like, why? And I, like you, I wanted to be able to control it. And, I still have that in me. When I see, somebody having a nice, my husband has a, glass of wine, sometimes I'm like, God, I wish, that's the one thing that I didn't conquer.
Yeah.
But 5 years out, I'm starting to not care about that.
Yeah.
anymore.
It's a journey. It really is. I mean, it's such an overused term in our world, but it's a journey. And yeah, so I didn't travel for 10 months. Like Peggy, to your point, like I didn't have the social stuff. I didn't have to be at league meetings or wherever the team was traveling. And so the first trip I did though was 10 months in, and it was Las Vegas, because that's where our summer meetings are every year. Mm-hmm. And so, I wouldn't say it was easy, but because I chose to be so open about it,
yes,
at day 80, I posted on Facebook, because I knew if I didn't start closing loopholes, that I would crawl right.
It was at day 96.
Yep.
Yeah.
Day 80. And I was so uncomfortable. And I wrote that in that post. I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. And I had found this Naked Mind, 2+ weeks in, and I ended up, we know the story now, like I got certified as a coach, and now I'm a senior coach with this Naked Mind. I launched Mindfulness Elevated, and in all that time, I decided to launch that business when I was 2 months alcohol free. The certification was 6 months long, but I knew if I didn't do it in that pocket of time, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. And so I just kept closing loopholes, talking about it. So by the time I got to Vegas in June of 21, everyone knew.
Even the workers, the people you were interacting with?
Yeah, my staff. Yeah, my staff knew. I was just really open with them to say, I don't like my relationship with alcohol. And
How was it received? How was it received by everyone?
Well, I'm the boss, right? So they're like,
okay, then maybe that, but your equivalents with different teams and different organizations that you all met with in Vegas, they're going, hey, there's Toni. Haven't seen you. Let's have a drink.
Yeah. So it's like, and I would just say, yeah, I don't drink anymore. And you get a lot. I'm trying to remember if I got anything that was noteworthy. Some people, what I usually get actually in that circle is, good for you. I need to drink less too.
Oh, wow.
I agree with you. And that the other thing that you just said, it's how you say it, right? Like Jeff and I met at this dinner. Jeff decided to have a dinner. He's from Sacramento. So we had this dinner with a few other women, and we were at the table, and someone said, there was like a lavender, lemon, creme brulee. And I'm like, does anybody want to split? I don't do a lot of desserts when I'm out. I love to split a dessert with someone. And the person said, I'm doing Whole30. It's the way you say it. If you say, no, I'm not drinking, people usually have a response that's very respectful. But if you throw yourself out and go, I'm not drinking anymore, like you're holier than the other people around you, it's a different response. Yeah. It's being who you are, which is, one of the reasons I fell in love with you when I met you. And I just, I think there's so many people that can't be out in the open. Like I have a lot of friends in the healthcare, business, doctors, nurses, all of that. And it's not as easy for those people to be out there. Right.
Yep. It isn't. I have a lot of clients that are in healthcare too. Yes. Yeah. A lot of my clients are, and it's like, okay, let's work through, because it's a giant identity shift. Like my friends nickname me Toni Party Time. And so it's like, how do you shift from that identity to, Toni teetotaler time. Right. And so I had to work through that identity shift and do a lot of that work, because depending, Peggy, on who asked me, I'll say something like, oh, I cashed in all my drink tickets, or I used that one last week, and people laugh. And, or if someone asks me, they really want to know more and I know they're struggling, I will talk about, there's not one thing that I won't talk about, because I know every time I talk about it, one, it reduces the shame behind this stigma with alcohol. And two, to allow someone to know that they're not alone. And so just talk about it. But it took me time to like be comfortable in my own skin. Like it goes back to that courage. I present courageous, but it was hard. I had to keep pushing myself to go do these things. So Jeff, you asked me, there was one trip I was traveling on. I think it was not too long after Las Vegas. And I was having a hard time, and I called my husband, and Josh always jokes. He's a funny guy. He likes to, well, he thinks he's funny, but he does make me laugh. And he always says he's like the anti-coach, like not in a bad way, but he's like, Toni, I'm going to open a business called Elevated Mindfulness, and I'm going to coach the opposite way you do. So funny. I'm like, okay, you smartass. But I called him, and I was like, I don't know, Josh, I got this dinner tonight, and then I got to go to a hockey game, and I might drink tonight. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know. I just think I've been alcohol free. I can't remember how long it had been at that point, 15, 16 months. And I said, I just don't think they're going to respect me if I don't drink, anymore. And he said, hang on. What if they actually respect you more because you choose not to drink? And I was speechless, and I'm rarely speechless.
I think, honestly, that, if I have any greenness around you, is the fact that I wonder how this would have all gone down if my husband had said that to me.
Yeah.
Instead of,
you receive that
treated me as like that I had some sort of moral injury, which I'm sure a lot of your clients do.
Yeah.
I have to be straight up. We just had an earthquake, so it's kind of weird.
Are you okay?
Yeah, we're fine, but it was
I
pretty
just thought
big.
you were having a case of the shakes real bad after.
I thought Paul was jumping on the bed or something. He just came in here and said, did you feel that? I go, yeah, I thought you were jumping on the bed or something.
It's a party.
Toni, how were you received that night? How did that play out?
What was funny about that night? Nobody was drinking anyways.
So you know what, we perceive these firsts as that's how it's always going to be, and it's like that. And once that first one is uncomfortable, but once that hurdle is broken, the next one. It was my first time of going to a party with Jeff case of beer every day. Graham. It was everyone's gonna. No, they really didn't. And once I realized it was. I built that first one up to be so much worse that everyone was just the record and the music was going to stop and everyone was going to stare. And that wasn't the case. And I did get some of the, hey, good for you. That's great. The encouragement. I didn't get the things that we fear. And the point was, as hard as that night might have been for me, every night after that got easier and easier to where I couldn't care less. I'd say it with pride, and it always leads to a good, interesting conversation.
I still want to drink when I'm around you, Jeff.
She gets named Party Time Toni, and you did what you call me, Jeff the Dork. Isn't that what the nickname you gave me or something? It's just hurt, and I don't get it. So what? Tell me the maybe the struggles that you've had in this world. Alcohol free, and the flip side of the coin, the benefits, the things you realize.
Yeah, I think the struggle, I'll say that I don't really struggle anymore. I don't. It's once I got, so the last time I really remember struggling was when my husband and I bought this house. One of my one of our long-term goals, which we both had individually, and then we got married, was to buy a house on a lake. And we bought this house a little over a year ago. And I remember my office looks out on the lake here. And I remember sitting here thinking, how the heck? And we moved here in February. So I'm like, how the heck am I going to go out there and boat and float and do all this stuff and do this alcohol free? And I remember having that thought, and I remember and not being mad at myself for having these thoughts, but I'm smart enough to know if I start to have this thought day after day after day, right, it becomes a belief. So I was like, well, let me do some work on this up here. And I grew up on a lake, and I'm like, Toni, you grew up on a lake. Were you drinking when you grew up on that lake? Well, no, because I was a kid, and I wasn't drinking. And I had a wonderful childhood.
Mhm.
And so can't I just be that same Toni, but an adult on this lake? And that's exactly how I spent the first summer. And it's just so freeing. But it's
But
that thought.
it does feel different at first because there's nothing that's normal.
Totally.
But it's because we're so used to this pattern of how we've done it. So I think people say, well, it just kind of felt weird. Yeah, it does. That's the beauty of it. You're doing, but every time you start to realize the truth, because alcohol lied to me. It convinced me that I needed it to have fun, to socialize. Furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
I had to prove it to myself to believe it.
100%. 100%. And my number one reason to drink was to have fun. And I earned it, all this stuff. And so I have way more fun. So the benefits, the list is long. I mean, there's so many. Like, I'm just clearer. I'm so creative. I have I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I have this beautiful coaching business that I love so much. My clients are amazing. I never feel like I work a day in my life in either one of my careers. And what's been awesome is I can dovetail it and talk hockey and talk about being alcohol free and do it all together.
I love that too. I have that too. Like so many of the things I teach at UC Davis cross over into the work I'm doing, with zero proof. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a gift.
It is a gift. And I just can't believe I actually did this when I was drinking, because
no, me too.
My productivity is like through the roof. Well, because you have a business on the side, when that's the third of my life I was drinking. Now I have that. So
yeah. Oh, when you think about the time thinking about drinking, actively drinking, recovering from drinking, I feel like my self-confidence, my self-worth, my self-value, my self-esteem all went up. Right. And there's not one. Wild horses couldn't drag me back to Toni party time. But she served me, right? Like I got out of that part of my life what I was supposed to. And I'm not ashamed of it. And I hope that, because being outspoken and being in sports and being I'm a minority in two ways in what I do for a living. One, I'm a handful of women that do this job in the US, and then I do it alcohol free. And so I use that, and I say, okay, for the next generation. So I'm creating women in sports groups, like within the league. I also went to the National Sports Forum. I hosted the first ever women in sports panel, where it was all women, and was able to talk about being alcohol free. Well, not alcohol free. We had a networking event. I asked the sponsor, which was Anheuser-Busch, can we please have some alcohol free options, which was Bud Zero? They're like, yeah. So I'm advocating in the, alcohol free space to have that option for people that want it. And then the next generation of women in this industry coming up saying, you can break whatever glass ceiling you want, if it's in sports or whatever work you want to do and you're passionate about, but don't feel like you have to belly up to the bar to do it.
Yeah. That's great. So, how do we get a hold of you? Like, Jeff, are you going to post her?
Yeah, I'll put all the links in. I do want to throw one last thing. We had a comment that I want Toni, you to respond to. Someone said, I've avoided our beach house and mountains because I can't go there right now without drinking. I always put the two hand in hand. How do you respond to that?
Yeah. So that's just when it's like that deep belief between, like, that I had, that drinking is fun, and how could I possibly go there and not have fun, wherever there was. And in this case, it's the beach house. Right. So what I would say is, if I would need a lot more time, but if I was coaching this person, I would encourage them to work on getting some out. Where are they comfortable getting alcohol-free time at? 'Cause it sounds like they can stack up some good alcohol-free time. And as that muscle strengthens, then you start to kind of baby step into the beach house piece, right? Like maybe you go there for 10 minutes and leave.
Mhm.
Then you come back and go 20 minutes, then leave. And I'm not talking about leaving for 10 minutes, coming back. I'm over time to build that trust up.
Yeah, I suggest small, doable, successful things that you can win and build success in the momentum. So I will put your links. Peggy, I guess the last question is for you is, can you tell everyone what is a Canuck?
This is a Canuck. Well, it's a Canadian like lumberjack, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Peggy, did you know that answer? I thought it was a Canadian.
I never did ask that.
I don't know. I'd have to Google. Am I right? I don't know.
I don't know. I just thought it was some Canadian thing, so I never really,
I don't know. And our head coach is Canadian. He's probably laughing at me if he's watching this right now.
As a woman of power in the hockey industry, I would expect you to have. I expect this lack of knowledge from Peggy, but from you, I was expecting more.
You caught me. You caught me. I don't have the answer. That's okay. I'm going to Google it once we get off here.
I know. I'm sure. We should offer a copy of Peggy's book to the third caller that gets the correct answer in. But.
I got it.
If you haven't read Peggy's book, everyone read it.
A Canuck is a nickname for a Canadian, sometimes bearing a negative implication, more often wielded with pride. So it's just another name for a Canada person.
For Canadian, yeah.
Canadians
are wonderful people. I love them.
Toni, I'll put the links in for how to get a hold of you. And thank you so much. You amaze me. And if you haven't seen it, Slapshot is the movie. It's good, right? Have you seen it?
I have. Yeah, I can't. If I was doing this job and hadn't seen that movie, that would be embarrassing.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Peggy.
See you in Seattle.
Yes, I'll see you in Seattle, if not before.
Peggy, Toni, thanks so much for being here. Hang on, and we will see you soon, everyone. Take care. Bye.